now.
Hey guys in the guy stuff world, I just want to take a moment today to let you know we are dedicating today's episode to my father-in-law, Pastor Fred Caraway, who passed away just a couple of weeks ago. Incredible legacy, incredible ministry, pastor for over 40 years, won a lot of people to the Lord. He went home to be with Jesus a couple of weeks ago. I literally got the call 5 minutes before we were about to record the episode you're about to listen to. So this is the reschedule. But we just wanted to give him some honors due. We miss him, but we're continuing his legacy of sharing Jesus with people. Thanks, guys, for listening. And Papa Fred, this one's for you today. Around the world, welcome back to another episode of the Guy Stuff Podcast. I am your host, Anthony Claiborne, joined as always by my brother from another mother, halfway around the world, in the northernmost tip of Thailand, John the Redman Espy, and we are honored by theological greatness today. We have the great, although I don't know if he would agree with this. He seems humble, but we're like punching way above our theological weight today.
We're punching way up.
Above our weight.
This is theological geniusness here.
That's right. John, lay it on the folks. Who have we got hanging out with today?
We're honored to have Dr. Michael Heiser, the myth, the man, the legend, from all the way in the great state of Florida, down there.
Even styling too, by the way. If you're not watching online, my man is wearing like a baseball tee and everything. He's got the nice specs on. Very stylish.
I mean, that's just what I'm saying. Like Anthony's a little jealous. I think Anthony's got a little.
I don't know if you guys can hear me, but this is starting to sound like a world wrestling introduction.
There we go. All right, I've got my glasses on.
First minute or so, I guess I should have my wife listen to.
Exactly. I'm trying to build you up, Doctor. I'm trying to build you up, Doctor. Trying to get your wife, get a little more points with your wife.
But go back and listen to that episode with Dr. Mike Takis for that.
Oh, yeah, that would be a good one, yeah. We are so excited you're here. And, one of the things, if you don't know, Dr. Heiser has written a ton of books, scholarly books. He is how many, dead languages do you speak, Dr. Heiser? I mean, do you?
Well, I don't speak any, but what you have to do is you have to be able to read and translate. So it's about a dozen that they force you to do in grad school. So
yeah,
what is the most
it's a bamboo shoot for each fingernail. Then they start on the toenails too.
So he can disrespect you in cuneiform.
There you go, exactly. What's that cat's name? That crazy cat that was trying to do the cuneiform, aliens come down from the
from Nibiru and the Anunnaki.
What's that cat's name?
That was Zecharia Sitchin.
That's it, Sitchin, Dr. Sitchin.
Yeah, that's what. Boy, we could just sit here and do stories the whole time. When I was in 2001, when I was in grad school, I wrote my first novel, the Facade, and a friend of mine actually contacted the Art Bell show, what used to be known as the Art Bell show. Now it's Coast to Coast. And we thought it was a joke, Art's got this phalanx of people around him, and it'll take weeks and months to penetrate that, if ever. And the next day, I get a call from Art Bell at the house, And so I wound up going on the show, to talk about, a biblical view of aliens. And I went after Sitchin. I actually said, I know, when I wrote the novel, I didn't know who this guy was, but then, after getting feedback, I had to go look him up.
Yes, sir.
And I thought at first this is a kindred spirit, ancient languages expert, And I just said on Coast to Coast, I said, I don't think this guy knew any of the languages. He's Jewish and he makes Hebrew mistakes. I don't know what to think, So that kind of made me famous and infamous at the same time. You know, I
So
probably shouldn't have been so harsh, but
no, don't be
I don't know. He
apologizing for
kind
that.
of deserved it.
Yeah, don't be
You're on the Guy
apologizing.
Stuff podcast. You
Exactly.
can be harsh here.
Talk about that joke.
This is the place.
We'll call him out. We'll put a fight together. You want to? We'll put a
Yeah,
fight.
where you at? Come on. We'll put you
Come
on
on,
an
Sitchin.
octagon and let you debate.
He's deceased now, so.
Oh well, never mind.
His,
See you.
Oh,
his,
a little
his
hard.
wife
You
is
win.
actively, his wife and his webmaster actively promote his, I guess you'd call it, his legacy.
Really?
On Coast to Coast. Every time I've been on Coast to Coast AM 33, 34 times, and you know they treat me well. I mean, I can't complain about anything. But every time I go on, George wants to talk about ancient aliens. It's like,
Really?
you know, but that's his thing, you know. So I try to be a little nicer, but I'm pretty direct still, you know.
That's good. That's good. Because I mean, if you don't know, like if it was just me or somebody like anybody else listening to Sitchin, you'd be like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. Until you get an actual scholar like you who speaks the actual or reads the language and go, this guy's a moron.
And that is the problem, because a lot of these, I mean, I've been in the fringe community now since 2001 as a participant, I guess you would call me. So it's 20 years now, and I can safely say that a lot of these people just make stuff up, knowing that, like, who's going to check?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, who's going to check up on me?
Yeah.
And then if they do, I'll just say that they're a member of the Illuminati, or you know, they're part of the conspiracy. I mean, I've been trying to get in the Illuminati for like 10 years now, and I can't do it.
Let's talk after the show.
I even got the T-shirts. I've got, you know, I did a garage video cast with my son, and he's putting the symbols behind me on the green screen. And, you know, I talk about, you know, I ask for suggestions, things I can put on my resume and you know, my application to the Illuminati. The farthest I've gotten is I'm a Jesuit and a government disinformation agent. But that, I mean, that's pretty low level.
Yeah, I mean, you got to start. You got to keep punching up, doctor. You got to keep punching up, doctor.
I know.
You got to get up in there with some Jay-Z and some what's her name? Beyonce.
All right. So check it out. We got so many things we want to talk to you about, and a lot of the things, you know, like
you can go all sorts of crazy places.
There are so many incredible videos. Like, you talk about rabbit hole. Like, I've watched your short videos like for weeks now, just weeks and weeks and weeks. But for the guy, just like because we have so many things that we got to cover, like 30 seconds to a minute, for the guy who's in his garage right now listening to this podcast. He's trying to organize his garage, or he's working on something, and he's heard us talking and alluding to ancient aliens, and on his mind he's like, what's that about? What is the biblical worldview on that? I know there's a guy out there who's wondering about that, so just hit it real quick.
Okay, the way this is the lethal blow, but it's also an obstacle. Okay, the lethal blow to anyone talking to you about ancient aliens is to immediately ask them for primary sources. Oh, the Anunnaki this, the Anunnaki that, Nibiru this, Nibiru that. Really, like what line of what tablet says that? Well, I don't know. I read it in Zecharia Sitchin. Well, where does he quote it? Does he give you the line? The short answer, I'll save you the time, is no. Okay, he doesn't give you the line for two reasons. A, it doesn't exist, and B, he's not stupid. Okay, he's not going to allow people to check up on it. And that sounds like an audacious claim, but this is why I made the little website sitchiniswrong.com. It's been there since 2001. I don't really maintain it, but it's still there. And on the Anunnaki tab, if you go to sitchiniswrong.com, there's a scintillating video of me. It's a screen capture where I go to the electronic text corpus of Sumerian language, okay, and I type in, here's how you would search for Anunnaki in all of the tablets in the database. I spell it out, hit the button, and there you get the results. And then it's all in transliterated Sumerian, but there's a little TR next to each line. That's for translation.
Mm.
And so what I tell people is, look, okay, there's 115, whatever it is, references to the Anunnaki in the tablets. Click on all of them, and you will find out that there isn't a single line of a single text that has the Anunnaki associated with Nibiru, or that says, the Anunnaki lived there or came to Earth or flew a craft. There's nothing, zero. All of Sitchin's claims are fabrications. So the challenge is, how easy would it be to make Mike recant and go away? It'd be real easy. All you got to do is run the search yourself. Don't trust me. Go up there, run the search, and find out. And you'll find out that I'm right. So you don't have to trust me. So that, but the problem is that takes a little work.
Yeah.
Right.
I tried to make it a little shorter for people. Amazon.com, there are 4 articles, and they're all in German. Published scholarly articles on the Anunnaki. I had a German native speaker translate them. And then I republished them with some commentary. And that you can get on Amazon for like $10-12, whatever it is, So that's the best I can do. If you want primary sources, that kills Zecharia Sitchin's narrative immediately. It's DOA. Yeah. But how many people will actually take the time to go look?
That's the thing.
The Illuminati told you to say that.
Exactly. You're a spy, Dr. Heiser.
That was on my application. Send me the link to the show, and I'll put it in my application.
We're like a gate. We're like a clearinghouse or a gate for the Illuminati. We're like you're the first line of. We're the first line of.
Well, I know they're tired of receiving my application, but I'm going to wear them down.
Exactly. And we have, we understand that, and we're there with you. But the thing is, like, it was interesting to see, like, people will want to believe the lie, rather than the truth, because I mean, like you said all the time on the podcast. The world is strange, but thinking shouldn't be strange, right? Your thinking shouldn't be strange. Something to that effect. You say it a lot more.
Yeah, that's the Fringe Pop tagline.
Yeah. But the people want to think the stranger, the weirdest things is what they want to gravitate toward. And somebody goes, well, it's not actually that. It's this, which is still crazy. It's still wonderful.
This is actually, Ancient Aliens. I mean, it's easy to sit here and mock it as a scholar, okay? And I'm not the only one who does, because, people don't realize that scholars really aren't flummoxed by how the pyramids were built or how Tiahuanaco was built. They're not flummoxed by any of this stuff. People are led to believe that by the show, and then because their source, their gateway to information is the internet. But what they don't realize is that, hundreds of thousands of articles, okay, on all these subjects, everything you could put under the paranormal fringe bucket, are out there, but they are not on the internet. They're not free. They exist in journal databases because it's peer-reviewed scholarship, and those people do not put their content out for free. But most people don't even know this stuff exists. And so they get the impression that, I can't find anything to refute Sitchin. He must be. No. Let's, back up the bus a little bit. But I'm trying to expose them to that. People want to believe this, though. It's actually a serious subject, even though it's easy to poke fun at.
Yeah.
Because what Ancient Aliens is as a worldview is. The reason it has 13 seasons now and such a strong appeal, and it's a cyclical thing, in the 70s and 80s, and it just changes, but the appeal has always been strong, really since the mid-20th century, is because you have a lot of people who have rejected the Judeo-Christian worldview when it comes to origins, human origins, and they have also rejected materialist Darwinism. So what the Ancient Aliens thing does is it restores and meets the need for mystery and transcendence in terms of our creation, and an intelligence behind how we got here and how everything got here without God. And that's significant because when you dump God, you dump accountability.
Yeah.
There is no transcendent moral authority because we don't have a deity creator. What we have is a bunch of extraterrestrials who themselves evolved. They don't have any moral superiority to us. They have technological superiority and, you know, stuff like that. But this is why it is essentially a religion. It's a worldview.
Yeah.
And it's this middle ground that has such strong appeal because it meets the needs we all have to believe there's something bigger there outside of ourselves. And we have humans are here to pursue a destiny. In this case, our destiny is to become like the gods, like them. And this is why you get this messaging in contactee literature and contactee experiences and abduction experiences. The messaging is very consistent. We're here to save you from ourselves. Someday you'll be like us. You'll be transcendent. You know, we're going to help you along, or you're special. We've chosen you to carry the hybrid child. You know, all this kind of stuff. It's a mythical narrative, but it meets all the right needs. It pushes all the right buttons. And so therefore it's actually really important, you know, to be able to have conversations with people about this.
Yeah. Well, there's one thing that always hits me is, and you kind of touched on it a little bit there when you were, explanation is when we see this, when we see, these angels of light, like Moroni, Moroni that connects with Joseph Smith, there seems to be this, that thread that actually kind of connects with the ancient alien procreation thing in Mormonism. So it would even connect to some of the mainstream religious sides of it that would say, oh yeah, this ties in exactly what we already believe.
But Mormonism has a lot of important threads to it. The supernatural visitation element is just one. Yeah. Mormonism is also the direct result, the direct output of the idea that America was the new Atlantis. Like the whole city on a hill thing, that actually has two sources. You have the Puritans, who had a theological spin on that whole idea that America is the new Jerusalem. Okay, America is the new Holy Land, the new Israel. And you get lost tribes nonsense filter out from that. But the other side of it is, like with Roger Bacon, and the Atlantean, thing, from the 18th, really the 19th century. Yeah. But, that all, comes over to the New World, and it gets picked up by the Mormons, so they're dealing with lost technologies, lost races, lost tribes, that are governed by an invisible providential hand, and you get the supernatural visit. They've got all of it.
Yeah.
In their system. But what people don't realize, if the 19th century had never happened, not only historically wouldn't you have Mormonism, but it would have no intellectual thing to draw on. Because it doesn't just draw from the Bible, it'll draw from the Bible piecemeal. But a lot of it is theosophy, the Blavatsky stuff, and ancient alien, narratives are part of that. Yeah. That's the pool from which it draws substantially. But again, who's going to look?
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting because I've always said that to me, Mormonism read more like sci-fi than theology.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's a lot of those sorts of strains, trajectories in it. That again, when I say 19th century, I'm talking about, other worlds talk. I'm talking about theosophy with, Blavatsky's own version of, Origins, which was a blend of Eastern mysticism with, again, occult stuff from the West. These root races, these cyclical races that include the Atlanteans, but ultimately start with extraterrestrials, disembodied extraterrestrials. You get all that. You get Lovecraftian horror. I mean, Lovecraft, wrote several novels that were basically, ancient alien stuff, alien visitation in the remote past. and somebody discovers that they're here, you know, they landed here and built a civilization. It's all this stuff, you know, and Mormonism, you know, draws on that a lot. And the dark part of it is that it wasn't just the Mormons. There was a lot of this going through 19th century America generally, in response to things like the mounds, you know, like all these mounds you find all over, you know, North America and Central and South America too, but especially North and Central America. That the supposition was that the indigenous populations, you know, the Native Americans, they were too stupid to build these things. They must have had some sort of superior race that came here before, you know, and so, you know, people just picked up on that and then started to fill in that gap, you know, with different things. So there's just a lot of stuff. I really like the 19th century because it has so much of this stuff in it. It's when spiritualism was born. You know, without the Civil War, would we have had spiritualism? I mean, there's so much death, you know, going on. It filled a need, and you had the people who were, you had the imposters who were doing the spirit photography thing, and they thought they were doing a good work. Like we're meeting people's emotional needs. You know, we're helping people, and I guess sort of, kind of, they were, but it just got out of hand. You know, and it became an alternate religious thing. You know, this is the 19th century. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on, and Mormonism is really in that mix, and it inherits a lot of threads. And a lot of your New Age thinking actually isn't like, oh, in the 70s somebody from India came over here and said this. No, it's like it's all here. It's been here for 100 years.
And that seems like
it just gets kickstarted again.
And that's what seems like is happening now. Is this back? Like I said, that cyclical thing is coming back now, especially with this, like with the Pentagon, I guess the government saying, "Oh, we have off-world technology." You know, it's this is cyclical idea, and I think that's one of the things that
I'm very suspicious of the. How can I put this? I don't want to be cryptic. I have a friend who spent years in the DC apparatus, specifically in regard to UFOs.
Really?
Yeah. And
see, that's actually connection to Illuminati right there. There you go.
There you go. You got it in. Come on. I mean,
this guy used to work for a very notorious agency that would be associated with the Illuminati. But he said he sought the job to be a mole. Like I want to work for this thing just to see, like, if this talk is true. You know? And basically he came out saying, yeah, there are people in there that this is the way they think exactly. I mean, it's not wholesale, but it's there. You can find it. But we recently had a discussion about the Tic Tac video that the New York Times put out. I'm very suspicious of that. I mean, your listeners can go to the Black Vault, which is John Greenwald's site. Greenwald is the teenager, you know, when he was, 16 or whatever. John started, filling out FOIA applications, for UFO things. The FBI actually visited his house. They got so many requests from this kid. They showed up at his house and freaked his parents out. But I mean, now he's 25, 30, almost 25 years into this. And his site, what he does is he gets all this stuff, scans it, and puts it online. He's done it for decades.
That's awesome.
And he has a very interesting timeline of what's said and what can be validated and what FOIA documents both confirm and deny. In the whole storyline of the To the Stars Academy with Tom DeLonge and the all that stuff, the Tic Tac, and there are holes in the story. There are holes in the timeline. There are holes in the story. For your listeners again,
they were abducted during that time, though.
Yeah,
So
right. That's why the chronology doesn't work. We were on the ship.
Right. I mean,
if
seems
your
obvious to
listeners,
me.
if you're interested in this, you should go to a site called the War Zone, and Google War Zone. Like UFO, Tic Tac, or whatever, with this guy's name, Tyler. That's Tyler.
Okay.
Rogoway, Rogoway.
All right.
Just some great journalistic work on, and I don't know that he's committed to either side of the story.
Yeah.
But I mean, fascinating articles where he'll ferret out like the Chinese, Chinese technology that could be a very good explanation for the Tic Tac, the radar reflectors and stuff like this. Stuff that's from the U.S. Patent Office with pictures and patent numbers.
Wow.
For this stuff. It's like, why isn't the New York Times doing this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why isn't other
because it doesn't sell papers.
Right. Yeah. It's money. They don't care about, sort of presenting both sides of this narrative for some reason. Okay. They have positioned themselves as some sort of outlet for this narrative. So I'm actually quite suspicious of it. And again, the conversation I had with my friend is, he sent me a few things too, that it's like, if it walks like a duck, it talks like, it's just one of like I've seen this thing like play out before, just in a different form. There's something going on here.
Yeah. Do you think, like, if this kind of goes, may jumping ahead of herself a little bit, but if something comes out and they do say, all right, this is legit, we have off-world technology, something that's not there, and it either A is fabrication that's there, and they're going to use it for some type of political movement, political control, whatever's there, or there is legitimately something that's off-world that's not there. What does that do on either case of it to a Christian's walk, to a Christianity, a person who has a world that's going, deal with this?
So my friends,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, for my friends who don't understand what John was saying, if ET shows up, what then?
Yeah. What? Well, I have a lecture, and you can find it, likely on YouTube. I mean, I've spoken at several UFO conferences on precisely this topic.
Oh wow.
The title of the topic is could Christianity, and I might have even put the word like Bible believing Christianity in there, could Christianity accommodate a genuine extraterrestrial reality or disclosure, something like that? And my answer to that is sure. I don't fear, ET being real and showing up unless it's hostile. Okay, that's a different story. What I fear more is the disinformation and the lie. Now, I'll tell you why in a second, but going back to the original question, this is a long discussion that goes back to the days of Augustine and even before, Aristotle, these guys. And the question is, it was cast this way back when, is that, are there other worlds? Okay, and it actually became a big, philosophical issue, and famous philosophers took sides, on this issue. And some would say, well, there can't be other worlds because, why would God do that? Or if there is another world, this one still has to be the best. I mean, they would argue things like, based on God's perfection, that he could or could not have done something. So this was actually an early church discussion of, are there other worlds? And then it transitions into, well, if there are other worlds, are they occupied? Are there intelligent beings on those worlds? At one point in the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church actually forbade people from denying there were other worlds. That was a heresy to deny it, because then you're saying God can't have done something. They called it the principle of plenitude, that God in the fullness of his attributes could, of course, have made as many worlds as he wanted to and populated them. So to deny that, you're you're sort of truncating the ability of God. So the church at one time was really predisposed in one direction. Then, the things changed. They really changed after Darwin, when you get the evolution question in here. But the bottom line is I don't see any scriptural obstacle, to this. Scripture doesn't deny it. It also doesn't affirm it. I mean, there are places in Hebrews where there's a reference to the world and it's actually plural. Okay, I mean, there's a couple of those, but again, grammatically, it doesn't even have to be semantically plural there. So it's a stalemate. But nowadays, Christians object to this for a number of two simplistic reasons. Well, if there are aliens out there, they must be demons. Of course, that begs the question, why? And the reason why Christians conclude that is because of the messaging of the New Age. When you read this literature, and I've read a lot of it, and it's consistently Christianity that needs to be either done away with or redefined. And the person of Jesus. You never see Muhammad talked about that way. By the UFO visitor. You never see Buddha talked about that. It's always Jesus. And that makes people suspicious. But that phenomenon is actually different than the bigger question. Could there be extraterrestrial? I mean, I think a lot of the contactee stuff is supernaturally sinister. Because of the messaging. But I don't think that has anything to do with are there really aliens out here or not. I mean, what you need is biological evidence. And I'm not in the camp like the Catholic Church still is and C.S. Lewis was. Well, if there are other worlds, then Jesus has to go there and die and redeem them and all. Multiple crucifixions. This is how Thomas Paine. Remember Thomas Paine? Common Sense, American Revolution. This was the tool he used to ridicule Christianity.
Really?
He actually used the other worlds debate to say that Christianity is absurd. Because if there are other worlds, like all these people are running around affirming, then look how many times does Jesus have to die and rise again? It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, he actually used this.
Wow.
That's how wide the discussion was. Wow. I don't think that's the case at all. I think Hebrews 2 is very clear. The plan of redemption is aimed at humanity. Jesus became a man. He didn't become something else. It's very clear.
So you would kind of put it into two camps. Like there is the possibility of a biological creation by God.
I don't have a problem with it. I don't think there's any evidence for it right now. But I don't have a theological problem with it.
Gotcha. So
here's what troubles me more. And this goes back to Werner von Braun. Okay. If any of your listeners know what Operation Paperclip was, do you guys know? Okay.
We can spare
von Braun, he's got the long SS resume, the Nazi Party, the whole bit. Father of German, well, not the father. Oberth was the father of German rocketry, but for us, this guy's like the father of our space program. He winds up being the head of NASA, or I guess maybe second or third. I think he was the head of NASA at one point. But he's the host of Walt Disney's World of Tomorrow. I remember watching Werner von Braun as a kid.
Really?
On Disney.
This Nazi. That explains a lot with Disney.
The guy was a Nazi. You can go to the Space Center now, and it's got Kurt Debus' name on buildings. The guy was a Nazi. All right, so that's full of this. Well, von Braun, later in life, this was in the early 70s, supposedly he became a born-again Christian. I don't know if that's true or not. But he had a secretary, and he was having a conversation with his secretary shortly before he died. Her name was Carol Rosen, and she's still alive. And he said to her, now she takes this one way and I take it another. He said to her, essentially it was a confession in my reading that, well, first it was the Russians. The Russians justify what we're doing in the space program and all the buildup and all this stuff. He goes, and then it's going to be asteroids. And all these different threats. And he goes, and the last threat of all is that we're doing this because they're of the extraterrestrials. And he said, it's all a lie. Now, Rosen takes that to mean that the lie is that there are hostile extraterrestrials. She says von Braun believed there were good extraterrestrials. I think what he's saying is it's all a lie.
Yeah.
It's a means to an end. And that's what bothers me, because I think when you get Gary McKinnon, the guy from the UK who hacked into the Pentagon, and all that brouhaha, 10 years ago, whatever it was, where he said he discovered evidence for a secret space program. In other words, a space program that operates off the radar.
Located in Antarctica, most likely.
I think there is circumstantial evidence for that. I think a lot of what is captured on space station video, you see these things all the time.
Yeah.
Things going back and forth when there shouldn't be anything even moving.
Yeah. Okay,
out in space. I think there is something going on, and I think it's the militarization of space. I mean, the Chinese are very open about wanting to do that.
Yeah.
But I think that's the next Cold War thing.
Yeah.
And if they need to pull the extraterrestrial out of their butts, to justify that, they're going to do it.
Yeah.
They're absolutely going to do it.
Well, I think that, like you said, it goes into that idea of what's the end game. And you talk about it with that. It kind of ties into what we're going to do next with even with your book Unseen Realm, the demonic influence that's trying to influence the world to try to bring about the end of humanity. And so how do you see that tying in with the use of aliens? Really,
I mean, the reason I'm in, on the one hand, it's true that I wrote my novel, The Facade. There are two of them now. The sequel is The Portent. And I'm into the third now. These are putter projects I do when I want to have fun. Or when I have the time to have fun. It's true that I took the first year of what should have been my dissertation and wrote the novel, because I was just sick of grad school.
There you go. You blow off the steam,
But what the book is I decided I'm going to take all this UFO stuff. That was my special interest from junior high on. I just I would read books about that. I was really interested in it. I'm going to take all this stuff. I worked as a third shift security guard, so I had a heavy dose of Coast to Coast AM for 5 years. I was up on everything, and I read the books, all this. So I'm going to throw that in the blender with biblical studies, ancient languages, ancient texts, the sweet spot for me. This was my discipline. And I'm just going to throw it all in the blender and just see what comes out. Just have some fun with it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did, but I used that to introduce people to the kinds of things we're talking about now, the what if scenarios, because the centerpiece of The Facade, there's really two of them, but the question is, could Christianity could it sustain a genuine extraterrestrial reality? And so you have this guy who's essentially me, because I never wrote fiction before. I had to have somebody I knew. Okay. So gets sucked into the vortex through a relationship he had with a political science professor, in college, because they were both Christians. And they get sucked into this vortex of this program that they eventually find out this is not what we were told it was. And now what they don't know is that it sort of is, but we want you to doubt it because we're setting you up for this other thing over here. And so there's all these layers to it, but I think it's important.
3D chess.
And what I do in the novels is I write them to get people who won't ever read a theology book.
Yeah.
Get them into the world of science fiction, because I love it too. I love Stranger Things, all this kind of stuff. And you can have a good discussion, and then you start talking about, okay, what could it be if it's real? And you go down the different avenues. And I do think that the hunger for God, again, something transcendent, along with a malevolent supernatural intelligence that hates God, that's a very dangerous mix, because we will give you, there's a conversation between the villain, and I don't want to say too much about him in the second book, and the guy, again, who's me, the main character, where he just lays it out. And he does it. He says, I'm going to tell you everything that we want to accomplish. And the reason I'm telling you is because I want it to hurt. Because there's nothing you can do about it. And you're going to be the only still small voice in the world who's saying, don't believe this. and you're going to watch it happen. I want it to hurt. I want you to see how people who believe, who follow, the Lord and follow Jesus, I want you to see how easy it is to have them believe lies.
Wow.
And I think it's really important because all of this stuff is, to many people, it is their supernatural world, even though it's a product of evolution, the alien. Yeah. It's all the things that Scripture maps out in a different way. It, like I say, it fills all the voids. It pushes all the buttons. It overlaps with all the characters, good and evil, in the way it's presented. And so I do think that it's important to notice this. And if we believe in a supernatural world, which most of my academic writing, that's what I do. I talk about the supernatural worldview of the Bible, which most Christians are completely unaware of. They only have pieces of it. If the Bible really does lay this out, how might a malevolent intelligence map onto it intentionally?
Yeah.
How might they seek to counterfeit it and misdirect? And again, the only purpose is, well, what's the end game? I mean, I get asked all the time in interviews, well, do demons, and principalities and powers, and by the way, they're not the same, do they think they can win?
Yeah. I love how he just drops that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they're not. Do they think they can win? And I always answer, well, it depends what your definition of victory is. Depends what your definition of win is. If you're asking, do they think they can beat God or kill God in the end? Well, of course not. They're not morons. Okay, they know who the Creator is. They know that. But they're going to look at what God has, in their minds, foolishly done. Okay, God has committed the return of Jesus, which of course is connected to the day of the Lord, which of course is connected to their destruction in Psalm 82 and Isaiah 34 and Isaiah 24. I mean, all these passages. And God has linked all that to the, quote, fullness of the Gentiles being brought in. In other words, the accomplishment of the Great Commission.
Yeah. Right.
Because when the fullness of the Gentiles is brought in, according to the book of Romans, then Israel will have its awakening, and then the end comes, okay? So it's like, all we really need to do is keep the church distracted. All we really need to do is keep the Great Commission from, keep it in a failure position. We just need to kick that can down the road as long as we can. So victory is, we're still here.
Yeah.
And not only that, but the longer we do this, the more of God's family that he wants, we destroy and take away. Okay. So if that's how you define victory, they actually have a pretty decent plan. I mean, it's working pretty well. Yeah. At this point.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And so I think it's really important to get us to realize, people who don't want to have anything to do with church, which I really understand. Trust me, I understand it. But it's like, okay, you've traded church. Either, the minority would say, well, I don't believe in anything. Well, you're in like the 2% of the world. Okay, so, think about that and come back to me. Okay, think about why all the other smart people have not drawn that conclusion. Because you're in a distinct minority. Most everybody else has swapped in something else. And what if the something else does have an intelligence? And what if it doesn't provide you with a coherent means of salvation? Basically, this is what distinguishes Christianity from everything else.
Yeah.
Everything else. You can put religions into two buckets. Either they deny you have a sin problem, and there's your Eastern religions, okay? Or they say, yeah, you do have a sin problem, and what you need to do is perform.
Yeah.
You need to do enough good stuff so that God has a positive disposition toward you, and on a good day, he might forgive you and you'll get in. Yeah. It's performance based.
Yep.
Which, if you think about the futility of that, is disturbing. And the other side is equally futile, because then you don't even think about it, which means it never goes away. The problem never goes away. and you have to come up with a way to disguise evil.
Yeah.
Okay. Which again, just fights against, that's cognitive dissonance written all over it. Okay.
Yeah.
So what Christianity says is, yeah, you do have a problem and you can't do squat about it. Isn't it wonderful that God looked at you and thought those thoughts, you got a problem and you're hopeless. So you know what I need to do if I want you in my family, and I do, I have to solve the problem for you.
Yep.
And I'm going to do that at personal cost because I just want to.
Yeah.
It's the only way to do it. It's the only way to pull it off. It's the only way to get what I want, because what I want is you. It's the only way. And so that is the fundamental difference between biblical Christianity and everything else. And so if you're lost and if you're swapping that out for something else, okay, which if you believe that these other intelligences are real, no matter how you define them, even if they're good, even if they're all misses, they are inadequate to solve your problem.
Yeah.
On their best day. But what I'm hoping people will consider is, let's think about what they tell people.
Right.
Let's think about the messaging.
Yep.
And you got a different sort of trajectory opens to you if you're willing to do that.
Okay.
You hit on something a moment ago, and I had this conversation with somebody recently. You were talking about the supernatural, and obviously anybody who's familiar with your work knows that's your thing. You're really known for is dealing with the unseen realm. But I expressed to them, I said, everything is supernatural. There really isn't anything that is not.
Right.
And
nothing really happens outside the purview and influence of the supernatural.
Yeah. I said, the fact that we're having a conversation, we're two sentient, thinking beings having this conversation. That's not natural. That's not normal. That there's only explanation for that is a supernatural explanation. So really, in a sense, everything is supernatural. And to that end, I want to shift here, and I know your time is limited, but you talked a little while ago. You mentioned the occult, and you mentioned spiritualism. I want to talk about ghosts for a minute. just like yesterday, I saw a video. Did you see this video, John?
No,
yesterday from Gettysburg.
I saw one like 10 years ago where the soldiers were.
Well, there's always videos from Gettysburg. This one's new.
Oh,
and they looked like they were running across the road headed somewhere. Somewhere. So, Dr. Heiser, what is up with that?
Yeah, I actually have a low view of videos.
I can't imagine why.
Well, no, I'm gonna tell you and your listeners, and you can go and look at why. If you go to YouTube, type in Captain Disillusionment.
Captain Disillusionment.
Captain Disillusionment.
I'm going to have my secretary write that down. Hang on.
Okay. This guy, he's not a Christian, so some of the stuff is crude, but it's just, some of it can be hilarious too.
So it's like talking with John.
Yeah.
But this guy is an expert at video effects. And what he does is he has a couple ghost videos, and he shows you. He actually, like in real time in the episode, he reproduces it.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, he has amazing like UFO videos, you know, and one of cities in the clouds, you know, and it's home video, you know, and he's like UFO going into the vortex, and I mean he does it in a funny way, like he doesn't mock the viewer. He more or less does what he does to sort of poke everybody in the eye, and basically you watch him destroy what you think that is.
You know what he sounds like to me is a disinformation agent.
That's what it
for
is.
The Illuminati.
The Illuminati's got him.
I mean,
that's what he sounds like.
Good enough at the tools. You could. I mean, he shows you how to do it.
Yeah,
that's
he
great.
shows you how to do it.
Well,
so when I've seen, you know, several of these.
Yeah.
And it's like, how can I ever trust video again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, so what would, like, going back to, I mean, where all the ghosts come from? I mean, the thing.
Yeah, I don't have the problem with the idea.
Yeah, but it's like the ghost story.
In fact, I'm a little different here than most, you know, Christians who would be discussing this, because I do think, like, if people Google drmsh.com and put in things like ghost or the dead, right? You would find this. I did a blog series. It's got to be 10 years ago now, so I really ought to redo it. But I do think there is a distinction in biblical Hebrew vocabulary between the dead, you know, those members of the underworld, and evil spirits.
Yeah.
In other words, I am not one who equates ghost. They're all evil spirits.
Yeah.
I think the dead refers to the human dead, and evil spirits refers to something that's not human.
Yeah.
And there's different terminology here. You know, pardon my simplicity here, but I would think that the dead needed to once be alive.
Yeah.
And then they die.
Maybe.
And now you call them the dead. All right.
The opposite of alive.
Just saying, okay? But I think what you have, you know, you have an instance of this, like in 1 Samuel 28.
Yeah.
Where for whatever reason, and I think it's basically to kind of rub Saul's nose in it. God permits Samuel to appear at the beckon of a medium, and she's kind of freaked out. So we don't know, like, if she's been faking it the whole time, or like what's going. We're not even told what she does. Yeah, like Saul. I mean, the chapter starts out with Saul has kicked all of the mediums and necromancers out of the lab, but somehow he knows where to find this one.
There's this one.
He put them away for safekeeping, just in case.
Yeah, just in case, you know, and you know, God's not answering his prayers, so he goes to this woman, and she doesn't know who he is, and she's like, "What do you want? You know, bring up Samuel for me." And, you know, we're not even told what she does. You know, she does whatever she's been doing. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like, she gets freaked out. And she looks at him and says, "You're Saul." You know, like, "You're Saul. Like this is a trap. You know, you've entrapped me, and now I'm a dead woman."
Yeah.
You know, and he's like, "Don't freak out. You know, don't be afraid." And he goes, "What does he look like?"
Just to make sure.
Right. Because her only response is, "I see Elohim coming up out of the ground." And this is an instance where you get Elohim used of something that's not the God of Israel.
Yeah.
In fact, pretty low level, you know, the human dead.
Yeah.
And so, you know, he asks, then he singularizes it. What does he look like? So we're talking about one Elohim here.
Yeah.
And then she describes him, and it's like, that's the guy, you know, that's Samuel. Like, I'm not going to kill you. I need to talk to him, you know. And then they have a conversation, and we know it's Samuel because he basically repeats the stuff that Samuel said earlier in the book, that Saul, you're toast, you know, and all that.
You're still toast, Saul.
You're still toast.
And I got to go. I got Tennessee too.
Why are you bothering me? You're toast. I already told you this before. So, you know, in that instance, what I take from that is that God might have a reason for having, you know, someone see their departed loved one. And we call that a ghost, all right? Like, I know I've never had this happen, but I've had pastors tell me, I mean, people that they're not just going to lie to me.
Yeah.
You know, and people either I didn't know or I've known for many years that said, look, I just want to tell you, I was doing this guy's funeral and very well, just that kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know why,
Yeah.
but he's in the crowd, and it's like this kind of stuff occasionally does happen.
Yeah.
And so I look at that and say, well, I don't know why that is. I don't know why God would allow that.
Mm-hmm.
It could be an evil spirit.
Yeah.
That, that's on the table. It could be a counterfeit, but it also may not be, because again, I do see this distinction. What I always tell them is, look, you never seek this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We are forbidden from any sort of solicitation in this regard.
Mm.
And if you ever have an experience, whether it's a dream or something you don't think is a dream or something like this, you must evaluate any messaging according to Scripture.
Yeah.
And I'm honest with people, because they ask, well, what would you think if it happened to you? Exactly what I just told you. God knows me well enough that if this is God, he's going to have to do it like 5 times in a row.
I ate
because
some pizza
I'm
last
just
night.
not buying it. Right?
I'm
not buying it.
Dr. Michael Heiser, my friend, I'm actually sleeping in the room tonight. My father-in-law passed away in. So.
Yeah. Well, no, we did that with my mom, who passed away too. And my mom and dad actually had one of these experiences after my dad's dad died.
Really?
This is my mom and dad.
This is something tell me if I'm crazy here, Dr. Heiser, because this,
well, you
like,
crazy.
You
crazy.
Like for having this thought. There we go. So this is what I've always thought, like with the dead, with ghosts, because it talks about the Sheol, the land of the dead, and it was. And
that was my question.
Yeah, you go. It's like, so there's 2 compartments in Old Testament Sheol. You had Hades, or the grave, and then you had Abraham's bosom. Am I correct on that thinking so far from ancient history? Well,
I think the language of Scripture there is designed to this is going to sound really weird, but just think about it. As if nothing else I've said is really weird.
We've been talking about ancient cuneiform.
Pretty weird.
Right. Okay, just think about it. We are given descriptions, spatial descriptions of a place that does not have latitude and longitude. There is no spatiality in the spiritual world.
Yeah.
You say, well, why is that? Well, it's because how else are we going to describe it? I mean, God has picked people. He's chosen to have people communicate truths about the spiritual world. So they're going to use the language of embodiment for spiritual beings at times. And sometimes it's real because they're on earth and they're interacting with people. But he's going to use spatial descriptions.
Yeah.
The writer has to. You can't not use spatial language to describe a place.
Okay.
I mean, just try it sometime.
Yeah.
So when you go to the examples, it's like, I don't know that we can say, oh, there's only 2 compartments in the underworld. Okay, what it's designed to tell us is that the underworld itself has maybe rooms or facets to it, or features or something.
Gotcha.
But I actually think it's more than 2. But anyway, I mean, if we're counting descriptions, and they may all be the same way of saying the same thing. I don't know.
Gotcha. So I'm at least not crazy for thinking that part. Right? So far.
No, I mean, because that's the language that's used.
Okay, good. So far I'm good. So now what I'm thinking is that because there is no spatial time or spatial constraints of the afterlife or the underworld, that the place where non-saved people go are basically here on earth in this cloudy whatever Sheol area. And would it be possible that sometimes the ghosts are the ones that are left in that kind of waiting area to go to the final judgment kind of thing, and they're kind of hanging out on the earth sometimes to be able to,
limbo.
In one sense, everybody is in that place, because that place we call the afterlife. The spiritual world is the afterlife. There is a good part of it, when you're with the presence of God, and where you're not with the presence of God, that would be the bad part. You know what I mean? Those are the fundamental compartments, if you want to talk compartments.
Yeah.
But it's all the same place. The place that doesn't have latitude and longitude and length and width and height and depth, doesn't have any of that. But we still have to use place language to talk about it. So you go, look at how we talk about when you die, you pass over. You pass on. You go to, whatever. We have to use this language. So everybody is there, wherever there is. And in that wherever place, there are those who are with the Lord. Okay. And how do we talk about with the Lord? We use the trappings of physicality, a house, a heavenly temple, a throne. I mean, how else are we going to talk about it?
Yeah.
Again, just try it sometime. And you're basically, when you grasp the problem, you're going to be sitting there contemplating your navel.
So what are they doing?
A sound coming out of you.
Like, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. What are they doing?
They're with the Lord. I mean,
just hanging out.
I mean, are they just worshiping? Are they talking with each other? Or
they're chilling, dude.
I would say since the Lord presents both those supernatural beings who are loyal to Him still, them and us, the departed dead, again, really are part of His family and His partnership, His bureaucracy, if you will. Okay. So what are we doing? My answer to that is whatever God wants done, whatever God tells us to do, that's what we're doing. So it might be visiting a relative and bringing word of comfort.
See, that's very interesting.
You might send an angel, to help somebody by the roadside. And then the guy how many times have we heard these stories?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Many times.
I turned around, the guy was gone, there's no car and there's no tracks.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe, yes.
I mean, so I think what we're doing, let me put it this way. What we're not doing is sitting there on our butts singing, the millionth stanza of Just As I Am. Okay.
So there's no Jesus culture in heaven. Is that what?
There are things God wants done. Whatever those things are, both in heaven and on earth.
Yeah.
That's actually really encouraging, I think, because you're not just like chilling.
Playing a hard.
Well, it's like I graduated to a vegetative state.
Right.
I mean, honestly, like you're not doing anything.
Yeah, that's the thing that changed my whole. Like I was at the Gospel Coalition conference many years back, and there was a guy talking about the reality of heaven, and it was like this. And all of us have thought, when we think about heaven, it's this ethereal, almost paganistic kind of idea of just kind of this floating around and in kind of disembodied whatever. But he's like, no, this is going to be more real than anything you can experience right now. There's going to be, and when the new heaven and new earth's created, it's going to be just as real as you're right here, right now. And it's that thinking that you're not going to be just sitting there. You're not going to be in this like dream state. You're actually going to be interacting with the creator of the universe.
What's really mind bending about it is if you look at post-resurrection, not appearances of Jesus, but post-resurrection talk about Jesus, like seated at the right hand of God. Okay, you still have embodiment language. All right, if you look at descriptions of believers, like departed, my own personal take on this is that, and I'm not alone here. I mean, there are scholars who focus on this kind of thing, is that other than God himself, but God sort of accommodates to this. Everything else needs some form, like some embodiment, if you will, because it's not only that we get these descriptions because what other words are writers going to use? It's that to have a being who has spent our entire existence embodied in a body, there's a transition from that to something else that is both retains what we're used to, but is also transcendent in some way. But in other words, it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
It doesn't go away. So we are accommodated even in the afterlife, even in the new earth, all this kind of stuff that we talk about, that we know doesn't have spatial limitations and all this sort of thing. It's unlimited. It's all those things. But nevertheless, there's still this bridge of familiarity. And it's almost like it's necessary, not both to communicate it and also to experience it, as well. So I don't know what that is, but it seems like it's like it just has to be that way.
Yeah.
Even in scripture. So it's fascinating to think about, but you see glimpses of that. Even Jesus, you'd think, well, if anybody is like ultimately glorified now, he wouldn't need any. Well, I mean, you still get this language.
Yeah.
Still got a body.
How can we get a body like that of Jesus if Jesus doesn't have it? There you go. You have this little bit of a conundrum.
Well, Anthony wants a body like this when he gets to heaven. I'm just saying. Anthony,
yes, absolutely, because I want to be as hairy as John. It's incredibly interesting to me.
Glue will fix that.
Exactly.
Gross.
It's like Darwin in reverse.
Nasty.
It's like
nasty. But it's fascinating to me. I think a lot about like what that transition is like for us. Obviously, my father-in-law just went home a couple of weeks ago, and in his case, he went to sleep in his recliner. He literally he just went to sleep in his recliner, and just the Lord took him, and I just like have wondered so much, like, what was that like for him? Was it like he woke up and was like, well, wait a second, or did the Lord send someone to kind of shake him and say, yo, come on? What's that like?
The only indication you get of that in scripture, there's this I discussed this in the angels book about, do angels escort believers to heaven?
Right.
It is Luke 16, which Jonathan referred to. It's the only instance you get like that in wider Second Temple Jewish literature. There are examples of that. So that was an idea that was current, within. I don't know that I don't think we really have a specific Old Testament thing to point at and say they're drawing on this idea, other than, sort of just the family relationship and the general assistance, that the members of the heavenly host are supposed to give humans and all that kind of stuff. But that is there. That thread is there in a few places in contemporary literature, as well as that one place in the New Testament. So I don't know that that's the case for everybody. Or, even if Luke 16 is a parable, it's still there. It's still like part of the description. People aren't going to read that and go, what is he talking about? I mean, they're still going to get it. They're familiar with the idea.
I'm gonna have like a mule or somebody like the donkey gonna come up and escort me and be like, we've been waiting for you. Come on.
It's gonna have a plow.
Exactly.
Get to work.
Come on. Wash off before you get in. Anyway,
well, it's interesting because like John and I both, I would say, for the most part, come from fairly what most would call conservative theological backgrounds. And when my mother passed, that's about 5 years ago now. And I don't tell many people this, but so I guess I'm telling the world now. There were some things around her passing that were really hard for me, and that's all I'll really say about that. But I had a dream, like about a month after she passed, and it was so daggum vivid. We were standing in the kitchen at her home, and she put her arm around me and said, "Hey, it's okay. Everything's going to be okay. I'm proud of you." And she hugged me, and I woke up. And I've always wondered, was that a dream, or was God like, all right, Anthony needs a little bit of help, so I'm going to give him just a little.
And the answer could be yes, on both sides,
Yeah.
Yeah.
God works in strange and mysterious ways.
I mean, look at John.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Exactly. He put me.
We haven't picked on each other much this episode,
exactly.
So
we've
behaved for you, Dr. Heiser. We feel like
when you're sitting in somebody's like, oh, when you go check the ancient Sumerian language and blah, 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 you can't be like,
just over there on the
jokes. You can't be doing fart jokes in front of that.
I bet you $10 Dr. Heiser's got a good fart joke.
I don't now, but if we were back when I was in junior high, I'd probably have a whole. Don't recall any specifics now. But.
Well, I mean, solve this one for us. Do you think fart jokes were funny in ancient Sumeria?
Oh yeah. No, I think anything that would embarrass people would have been funny.
Exactly.
Just like humor is now. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, Dr. Heiser, thank you so much for coming on and hanging out with us. I know you got time. Your time's cutting short there, and we just have. I mean, it's been a blast just having you on and talk with you. I could talk for another 3 hours with you. I just would have so many questions.
If you wanted to come back sometime, we'd be okay with that.
We would love to have you back.
That's fine. Yeah, you just gotta, we'll throw some stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
There you go.
Schedule, so it's,
once you get the Illuminati now, you gotta stay with us. Let us.
If this will help my application,
for us,
exactly. I'll hang something behind me next time. You'll be all seeing. I'll hold up $1.
Exactly. Like he's in.
Well, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. And Dr. Heiser, we are hope you enjoyed our time. Hope you learned something. Hope that you were challenged, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys again soon. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you again on the next episode of Guy Stuff. Peace.
Thank you.